The sirens wailed like a death chant. Red and blue lights painted the sleek glass towers of the city as a black limousine screeched to a halt outside St. Augustine's private hospital. Security guards swarmed, but inside the car lay a man whose reputation alone had built and broken empires, Adrian Kale, the cold, untouchable CEO whose name dominated headlines. Tonight, however, his chest barely rose. His lips were pale, and for the first time in his life, Adrian Kale looked fragile. His pulse is dropping 30 beats, a paramedic shouted as they wheeled him through double doors. "We need blood, O negative, now." The sterile corridors exploded into chaos. Nurses sprinted. Doctors shouted orders. But amid the storm of white coats, one fact cut sharper than any scalpel. There was no blood left in the hospital's reserves. Across the street, under a flickering street lamp, Mira Hale tightened her tattered jacket against the cold. She had been invisible all day, ignored, pushed aside, treated like air. Just another homeless girl huddled near the trash bins. Her stomach ached with hunger, but her gaze followed the ambulance that had just arrived. Something about the panic in the air pulled her to her feet. She crossed the road barefoot, her steps hesitant yet pulled by an invisible force. Through the wide hospital glass doors, she saw him. A man sprawled on the gurney, lifeless, yet terrifyingly beautiful even in pain. His dark hair clung to his forehead, his strong jaw slack, his shirt ripped open by frantic hands. She had no idea who he was, only that everyone looked at him with desperation. "Blood," a doctor barked. "We're losing him. Damn it, where is the O negative?" A nurse's voice cracked. "The reserves are empty, sir. No donors on file. He has a rare factor. He'll reject anything mismatched." For a moment, silence fell, the kind of silence before a storm. And Mira, forgotten in the corner of the ER doors, whispered, "O negative." Her own blood type. The next instant, she was dragged into a whirlwind. What did you say?" A nurse turned eyes wide. "I'm O negative," Mira stammered. "Take mine. Please, just don't let him die." The room hesitated. One of the doctors sneered. "We can't just bleed a vagrant off the street. We don't even know if—" "Check me," she snapped, her voice trembling but fierce. "You don't have time to argue." That fire in her tone sliced through their doubt. Within minutes, Mira was seated in a freezing chair, her thin arms stretched out, needle piercing her skin. She bit down on her lip as the crimson life flowed out of her veins. "Keep it steady. He's flatlining." Machines shrieked. Adrian's body convulsed once, violently, before the transfusion began. Myra's vision blurred as she forced herself not to faint. She could feel her strength draining, but also something stranger, something pulling at her chest as though this man, this stranger, was tethering her life to his. Then, beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor climbed back, slow but sure. Gasps echoed. "He's stabilizing," a nurse whispered. "It's working." When the storm calmed, Mira slumped forward, drenched in sweat. Her lips were pale, her pulse weak. A nurse tried to guide her away, but she shook her head stubbornly, her gaze locked on the man lying unconscious in the bed. For one fragile moment, she thought she saw his eyelids twitch. His fingers curled faintly, as though reaching out from the abyss. She didn't know his name. She didn't know that the entire city would tremble if this man fell. All she knew was that her blood was now flowing in his veins. And deep in her bones, she felt a certainty that terrified her. This was not the end. This was the beginning. Outside the glass window, the city buzzed on, oblivious. Headlines were already spinning. Billionaire CEO Adrian Kale on the brink of death. Fortune and empire in jeopardy as Kale collapses. But inside the sterile white room, a homeless girl and a dying man had become bound by fate. And when Adrian Kale opened his eyes again, the first face he would see would not be a doctor, nor a nurse, nor his powerful board of directors, but Mira, the girl who had nothing left to give except her blood. The world inside the hospital shifted after the machine steadied. The once frenzied room hushed as if holding its breath around the man on the bed. Adrian Kale lived. But Mira, weak, pale, lips drained of color, sat slumped in the donor's chair, forgotten like a used instrument. The nurse tugged the needle free from her arm, muttering a distracted, "You can go now."
Go.
As if she were disposable. Her head spun, but Myra's gaze locked stubbornly on Adrian's still form, the faint rise and fall of his chest beneath the tangle of wires. Something inside her insisted, "Don't leave yet." Before she could move, heavy footsteps thundered into the ward. A wall of black-suited men surged forward, their voices sharp, efficient. "Secure the perimeter." "Where's Dr. Lee? What's the CEO's status?" Mira flinched as one of the guards spotted her. "Who's this?" His eyes flicked over her torn jacket and dirt-stained shoes with disdain. "Get her out. She doesn't belong here." A nurse hurried forward. "She's nobody. Just a donor we grabbed in an emergency." Nobody. The word struck harder than hunger ever had. Myra's nails dug into her palm. "If I'm nobody, then why is he alive because of me?" "I'm not leaving," she said hoarsely. Every head turned. The guard frowned, clearly amused at defiance from someone like her. "You heard the nurse. Move along." Myra's legs trembled as she forced herself upright, the world tilting from blood loss. But her voice carried, sharp and steady. "I gave him my blood. Without me, he'd be dead. Don't tell me to walk out like trash." The room froze. A stunned silence followed, broken only by the steady beep-beep of Adrian's heart monitor. Through the glass wall, a woman in a tailored suit strode in, her heels striking like gunshots. Her eyes, cold and calculating, swept the scene. "Report." "Miss Sterling." A doctor bowed nervously. "The CEO is stable for now." But it was unusual. "We had no compatible donors on record. We were forced to use." His glance slid uneasily to Mira. "Her." Ms. Sterling's lips thinned. She turned her piercing gaze on Mira, the kind of gaze that could make seasoned executives break. "And who are you?" Mira lifted her chin, though every instinct screamed at her to shrink away. "No one important. Just someone who didn't want to see him die." Sterling's eyes narrowed. She circled Mira slowly, like a predator studying prey. "How convenient. A girl from the street just happens to be the rarest blood type, right when Adrian needs it." Her voice dripped with suspicion. "Do you expect gratitude? Money?" Heat flared in Myra's chest.
No.
"I didn't do it for money." "Then why?" Myra's throat tightened. She didn't know how to explain it herself. The pull she'd felt when she saw him, the strange certainty that her life was meant to cross his in that moment. Instead, she said simply, "Because no one else would." For a moment, something flickered in Miss Sterling's eyes. Surprise? Irritation? But before she could reply, a faint groan rippled from the hospital bed. All heads turned. Adrian Kale's eyelids fluttered. His hand twitched. "Sir." The doctor rushed to his side. "You're awake. Please don't strain." But Adrian's gaze, glassy and unfocused, drifted past them all until it landed on Mira. His lips parted. A rasp escaped, so faint Mira almost thought she imagined it. "You." Every person in the room stiffened. Miss Sterling's eyes shot back to Mira, sharp as daggers. "What did he just say?" Myra's heart pounded. She didn't know whether to step forward or vanish. All she knew was that the most powerful man in the city, the man who had never bowed to anyone, had just opened his eyes and looked straight at her. The room fell into stunned silence. Adrian Kale's gaze, sharp even through the haze of weakness, remained locked on Mira, as though the walls of guards, doctors, and advisors around him didn't exist. "You," he rasped again, voice low, gravel-edged. Myra's chest tightened. She felt every eye in the ward burning into her, demanding answers. But she said nothing, frozen in place, her thin frame trembling. Ms. Sterling stepped forward quickly, her heels a sharp interruption to the moment. "Sir, you've just regained consciousness. Don't strain yourself." "Will." Adrian cut her off with a single lift of his hand. His eyes never left Mira. Who is she? The question sliced through the air. The nurse stammered. She's the donor, sir. The one who... Adrian's lips curved into something unreadable. Not a smile. Not quite. So, it's true. My life is in her veins. Mira swallowed hard. His words, heavy with both accusation and awe, made her want to shrink back. But something in her resisted. Yes, she whispered, surprising even herself. It is. The days that followed blurred into tense hours of recovery. Adrian Kale, usually untouchable, was confined to a hospital suite more luxurious than most penthouses. Guards patrolled every corner. Advisors filed in and out with updates about the empire that nearly collapsed without him. And yet, he kept asking for her. At first, Mira thought it was delirium, a fever dream. But then came the summons. "You," barked a guard one evening, spotting her curled up on a waiting bench, refusing to leave the hospital grounds. "The boss wants you. Now." Myra's heart pounded as she was led into the CEO's private room. The atmosphere was suffocating. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering city skyline. Machines hummed softly. And in the bed sat Adrian Kale, no longer pale, but his cold, commanding aura had returned, stronger than the fore-drip pumping into his arm. His eyes lifted to her. Those eyes, icy, calculating, but burning with something darker now. "You're still here," he said, voice quiet but edged with power. Mira straightened her spine. "I was told you needed me." For a moment, silence stretched, heavy and electric. Then Adrian leaned forward slightly, his gaze piercing. "Why did you do it?" Her breath caught. "Because you were dying." "That's not an answer." His tone hardened. "You had nothing to gain. You had every reason to walk away. People like you," he paused, eyes narrowing, "don't give without expecting something." Anger flared in Myra's chest. "People like me? You mean poor? Homeless? Worthless?" The sharpness in her tone stunned even her. But Adrian didn't flinch. He studied her, his expression unreadable, as though cataloging every flicker of defiance in her eyes. "Yes," he said finally coldly. "People like you don't throw themselves into fire for men like me." Mira stepped closer, fists clenched. "Then maybe it's time someone proved you wrong." Their eyes clashed, sparks flying in the silence. For the first time in his empire-building life, Adrian Kale didn't know if he was furious or fascinated. The door burst open. "Sir, forgive me." Ms. Sterling entered, voice clipped. "The board is in chaos. Your competitors are circling. And yet you waste time on her?" Her glare sliced toward Mira like a blade. Adrian's jaw tightened. But instead of dismissing Mira, he turned back to her, his voice deceptively calm. "Stay." The single command froze everyone. Mira blinked. Sterling's eyes widened in outrage. "Sir, surely you don't mean..." "I said," Adrian repeated, his tone like steel. "She stays." When the room cleared, only the two of them remained. Myra's hands trembled, but she refused to show weakness.
Why?
"Why keep me here? You don't even trust me." Adrian's gaze softened for the briefest second before hardening again. "That's exactly why. Because I don't trust you. And I don't let what I can't understand out of my sight." Myra's pulse raced. His words were a threat, a warning, yet beneath them was something else. A pull. A dangerous fascination neither of them could deny. She should run. She knew it. But instead, she found herself whispering back, "Then you'll never understand me. Because I won't be owned."
Not by you.
Not by anyone. For the first time, Adrian Kale, cold, ruthless CEO, let out a low, dangerous laugh. And Mira realized with a shiver that this was only the beginning of their war. The night city glittered through the hospital suite's floor-to-ceiling windows, but the tension inside was darker than the skyline. Adrian Kale sat propped against the pillows, his body recovering but his eyes sharper than ever. His empire was crumbling in his absence, yet his gaze stayed fixed on the one mystery he couldn't ignore. Mira. She stood by the window, arms crossed, as though the glass between her and the city could shield her from his piercing stare. "You're not leaving until I have answers," Adrian said quietly, but the steel in his voice left no room for doubt. "I already told you," she said, her voice firm though her knees trembled. "I didn't save you for money or power. That's not the answer I want." His eyes darkened. "What's your connection to me?" Mira spun toward him, shocked. "Connection? There is none. You and I were from different worlds." But Adrian wasn't convinced. His instincts, razor-sharp from years of corporate wars, whispered otherwise. "Then why does your blood match mine so perfectly?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Before Mira could respond, the door swung open. Ms. Sterling entered, carrying a sleek folder. Her expression was tight, controlled, but her eyes gleamed with something dangerous. "Sir," she began, "there's something you need to see." Adrian took the folder, his brow furrowing as he flipped through the documents. Each page was a report, stamped and signed. His pulse quickened as he read the words. DNA compatibility, 99.87%. His head snapped up. "What is this?" Sterling's lips curved into a thin smile. "A full genetic analysis. You asked for clarity. There it is. The girl's blood didn't just save you, Adrian. It's tied to you. By family." Myra's breath caught. "What?" Adrian's voice was a growl. "Explain."
Now.
Sterling didn't blink. "She's your half-sister's child. The one your father hid years ago. The one the board erased from every record. And now fate has delivered her right into your hands." The silence that followed was deafening. Mira staggered back, her stomach twisting. Half-sister? Family? No, this couldn't be. She shook her head violently.
No.
"That's impossible. I don't belong to your world." Adrian's jaw clenched. His father, ruthless, manipulative, a man who had destroyed everything he touched, had always carried secrets. But this? A niece, lost to the streets, living invisible while he built towers of glass and steel? It was unthinkable. And yet her eyes, her defiance, her blood. Pieces began to fall into place. Myra's voice broke the silence, sharp and trembling. "So what now? You'll use this against me? Parade me in front of your board as your lost blood relative? Or throw me back out on the street because I'm not polished enough for your empire?" Her words cut deep, though she didn't know why Adrian's chest tightened at the thought. "I don't know what to do with you yet," Adrian admitted, his voice low, conflicted. "But I know one thing. I can't let you vanish." Sterling stepped closer, her tone cold. "She's a liability, Adrian. The press, the board, they'll devour her. She has no education, no background, no refinement. Keeping her will only drag you down." Mira laughed bitterly.
"See?
"Even your people know I don't belong." Adrian's gaze snapped to hers hard. "You belong because fate chose you. Because your blood is in my veins now. Whether you like it or not, Mira, we're bound." The words were both a vow and a curse. Myra's heart pounded. She should feel relief, maybe even safety, knowing she wasn't completely alone in the world. Instead, it felt like chains tightening around her wrists. She met Adrian's eyes, fire flashing through her tears. "Then maybe fate is cruel. Because I don't want your empire. I don't want your chains. I just wanted you to live." And with that, she turned toward the door. "Mira." His voice stopped her cold, low, dangerous, but trembling with something she hadn't expected. "Vulnerability. Walk away," Adrian said, his tone breaking, "and you'll destroy me faster than death ever could." The boardroom was a battlefield dressed in glass and steel. 40 floors above the city, the Kale Enterprises board sat in stiff rows, waiting for the man they'd already written off as dead. The doors swung open. Adrian Kale strode in, tall, commanding, alive. The ripple of shock was immediate. Gasps, mutters, eyes widening as though a ghost had walked among them. But it wasn't his resurrection that silenced them. It was the girl who walked 2 steps behind him, Mira. Her thrift store dress had been replaced by a tailored suit Adrian insisted she wear, but no silk could mask her unease. She felt their stares like knives, slicing away any illusion that she belonged in this glittering tower. "Mr. Kale," one of the directors finally spoke, his voice dripping disbelief. "We're relieved by your recovery. But surely this," his eyes flicked to Mira with disdain, "is a mistake." Adrian's gaze hardened. "This woman is the reason I'm standing here. Without her, Kale Enterprises would already be carving my obituary into its foundations." Mira shifted uncomfortably, wishing she could disappear. Every eye in the room pinned her like a specimen under glass. Another board member sneered. "And who is she, exactly? Your nurse? Or something less respectable?" The snickers that followed burned through Myra's skin. Before Adrian could respond, Mira stepped forward, her voice shaking but strong. "I didn't come here to play a part in your games. I gave him my blood because he was dying, nothing more. You don't owe me respect, but you won't strip me of my dignity either." Her words stunned the room into silence. Adrian's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but something softer, prouder. For a moment, he forgot the board, forgot the vultures circling his empire. All he saw was the girl who had faced death to save him, and now faced his enemies with nothing but her fire. But Ms. Sterling broke the spell. She stood from the corner, her sleek suit like armor, her voice sharp. "There's something the board should know," she announced. "The reason this girl's blood saved Mr. Kale so flawlessly is because she isn't just some stranger. She's his blood, his niece." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, accusations. Cameras hidden in the corners blinked red, capturing everything. Mira froze, her throat closing. She wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that she wasn't part of their world, but Adrian's stillness terrified her more. He didn't deny it. Instead, he looked at her with an intensity that stripped her bare. "Mira," he said quietly, but his voice carried across the boardroom, "whether you accept it or not, you're Kale blood. That makes you part of this family." Her knees threatened to give out. Family? The word tasted like ashes. For years she had wandered alleys and shelters, invisible to the world. Now this man, this empire, dared to claim her? Her anger surged hot and fierce. "Family," she snapped. "Where was this family when I slept in doorways? When I begged for food? When I nearly froze to death last winter?" Her voice cracked, and she hated that it did. "Don't you dare stand there and pretend blood makes us anything." The board watched, riveted, like spectators at a duel. Adrian's jaw tightened. He should have felt her rejection like a blade, but instead it only ignited his obsession. Her fury proved she wasn't another pawn. She was real, unpolished, untamed. And for the first time in years, he wanted something he couldn't control. "Mira," he said softly, stepping closer. "You don't understand. I don't want you in my empire because of blood. I want you here because you've already taken something I can't get back." Her breath caught. "What?" "My heart." The words hung in the charged air, heavier than any corporate decree. Mira staggered back as though struck. The mighty CEO, confessing love in front of his board? It was madness. It was weakness. And it was terrifying. Because part of her, against every defense she'd built, wanted to believe him. The cameras flashed like gunfire. Reporters surged into the boardroom, their shouts ricocheting off glass walls. "Mr. Kale, is it true your savior is a homeless girl? Are you in love with her? Will she inherit Kale Enterprises?" Mira froze in the center of the chaos, a deer caught in a spotlight. She could feel their eyes, hungry, stripping her bare, not as a woman, but as a scandal. Adrian's hand closed around hers, firm, protective. "Enough," he growled, his voice cutting through the storm. "Clear the room." Security rushed in, dragging cameras and furious voices out the door. But the damage was done. Myra's face had been captured, her story twisted into headlines before she could breathe. When the doors slammed shut, silence fell. Only Adrian and Mira remained in the wreckage of the storm. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned. "Do you see what you've done? You've tied me to your empire like some pawn." The world will tear me apart before I even have a chance to live. Adrian stepped closer, but she backed away, her chest heaving. Mira, he said, softer now, almost pleading. I never meant to. No, she cut him off. You meant exactly this. You drag people into your orbit and then wonder why they burn. Her fists clenched at her sides. I was nothing, Adrian. Nothing. And for a moment, I thought that gave me freedom.
But now?
You've turned me into your scandal, your charity case, your obsession. The words landed like blows. Adrian had faced hostile takeovers, betrayal, even death, but never this. Never her rejection. He raked a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted you to matter this much? His voice roughened. I don't want your bloodline, Mira. I don't want your pity. I want you. The girl who bled for me when the world turned its back. The girl who looked at Adrian Kale, the untouchable, and saw a dying man worth saving. Her throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. She wanted to believe him.
God, she wanted to.
But the chasm between them yawned wide. Wealth and ruin, power and nothingness. Adrian, she whispered, her voice breaking, I don't know how to be what you want. I don't even know who I am. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Adrian crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders with desperate intensity. Then let me find out with you. The words cracked her open. She searched his face, the raw vulnerability, the storm of need and fear behind his cold mask, and something inside her shifted. For the first time, she wasn't just the girl who gave him blood. She was the woman who could either destroy him or save him all over again. Her lips parted, trembling with the weight of everything unsaid. And if I can't, his gaze burned into hers. Then I'll still spend the rest of my life trying. The air between them snapped. And before Mira could stop herself, before fear could drag her back into the shadows, she let herself fall forward into him. Their lips met, fierce, aching, desperate. It wasn't a kiss born of fairy tales, but of fire and ruin, of 2 broken souls clashing and clinging in the same breath. When they pulled apart, Myra's forehead rested against his chest, his heartbeat thundering under her ear. For the first time in years, Adrian Kale didn't feel untouchable. He felt alive. And Mira, for the first time in her life, didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. But outside, the world was already sharpening its knives. Headlines blazed across screens, rumors spreading like wildfire. Homeless girl claims CEO's fortune. Adrian Kale's secret heir? Love or scandal? And in the shadows of the city, someone watched the news with cold satisfaction, fingers drumming on a mahogany desk. Perfect, the voice murmured. Let the world believe she's his weakness. Because that's exactly how I'll destroy him.